State Newspaper Review, and we'll have Emmanuel Bello here to look at the papers. We'd also start with Punch on the front page. CBN monitors 6,047 BVNs over suspected fraudulent transactions. I think that's the headline we'll take and look at it because of time. Emmanuel, what do you make of that?
I think it's an interesting story. It's one that is seeking to check some of the crises associated with the crisis of e-transfers and our transition. Basically, next year is going to be cashless, going by what the economists and the eggheads are taking to reduce, transactions, across the counter. So a lot of that will be happening, and I think the banks now are looking inwards to see how they could offset any crisis of fraud, especially those associated with the crisis of e-transactions all over the world. So this is a great development that the banks are also going self-checking themselves and trying to see what they can do to make it a bit more transparent as much as they can.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Sun this morning, and the leading headline. It's outrage, fury over Lagos lawyer's murder by police. Some riders there, killer won't go unpunished. That's from Lagos State Governor Shaun. Meanwhile, NBA CSOs demand justice as the IGP apologizes and orders a probe. Emmanuel, what are your thoughts on this really terrible, devastating story?
Yeah, it's just really heartbreaking that, something as ugly as this will come out from a beautiful celebration, Christmas. It's tragic, almost like it's uncanny that there's a story very similar to it in the UK papers of a similar, young woman who was killed on a day that everyone was just having fun. Just to tell you the tragedy that could just occur. A time of festivities, but this story is is bringing this to the fore, and also bringing up the issue of police brutality and the crisis of trigger happy policemen who could just shoot at sight without any concrete reasons to do that. It's a great thing that it's a good thing that everyone is weighing on it. Government, civil societies, human rights bodies, and the rest saying that look, this cop Ayuba must be investigated thoroughly, and not just to do that. It gives us a robust opportunity, even as we mourn the death of this young lady, to also look at the police reforms generally, their relationship with the civilian populace, and the crisis of even arming them, and how they go about trying to show that power. It's so sad. It brings in bold relief the crisis of police-civilian relationship and the crisis of extrajudicial kind of murders that we have around. Nothing is more symbolic of that crisis than this particular death.
And to think that she was pregnant. Very, very, very. All right, the Nation newspaper. Let's look at the Nation newspaper. There's quiet in PDP over Wike's Makinde's orders trip to the UK. G5 governors on retreat to decide on preferred candidate, presidential candidate. And on the red strip there, Jonathan supporters campaign for Tinubu. I want to look at those two stories, Emmanuel.
Well, it's the nation's way of always trying to, put in the front burner those crises that the PDP is dealing with. The problem of the Wike camp, the G5, as they love to call themselves. Disquiet because they are going for those meetings and you don't really know what's going to happen at the meetings. You don't know what is going to happen. So I think that is why the Nation newspaper is putting that, putting that up.
Okay, let's take a look at This Day quickly, our sister publication. Its leading headline here this morning, 2023 Rai runoff is increasingly likely. This is This Day Election Center projections. Emmanuel, what are your thoughts on these numbers?
Well, for me, I think this is the biggest story of the day, and the one that sadly we don't have all the time to look at, but very interesting story, and it's based authoritatively on those this day, polling, and you can actually almost take this to the bank that these numbers are accurate. At least the one of my state, Taraba, it is so accurate. So I guess most other states will be showing the same thing. Atiku is really leading in Taraba State. It's a PDP state. Natural. Some of these states are originally also PDP. So Atiku is leading on with this from this polling, and it shows clearly where this election is going. But the story is saying that we might not get a clear winner on the first ballot. That's going to go into a runoff. That is the projection. But the numbers here, quite pretty accurate. If you look at the demographics and you look at the trends, the voting trends, the history of the votings around these states, it might not be it's not very far from the reality and what this day is reporting. Now, the only other thing to do is this kind of story is that the campaigns are really going to jump at it. I suspect that a lot of them want to have some reaction to it, but this is as accurate and as scientific as it gets. It's authoritative and it's showing clearly, already fleshing out the campaign, telling us the direction this election is going. And if this is sustained, it's likely that we'll have an idea how this election is going to pan out as we head into next year.
All right, let's look at a foreign newspaper, the I newspaper. 2/3 of junior doctors are trying to leave the NHS. It says 65% of medics in England have actively researched leaving their jobs. So there is revealing that under the strike coming on the 9th of January. Emmanuel.
Yes, and also again embellishing or rather dwelling on the crisis of the NHS. As we started talking about it, those strikes of the nurses and the general problem around the crisis of the NHS. That's a lot of people are saying that the Sunak administration will have to think outside the box, find solutions to the strikes that are really happening now. The UK groaning under those strikes. The rail workers too have joined in that. Also, a lot of crisis, especially with adverse weather condition and all that, kind of just bring the problem home and makes it a very tough one for UK residents right now.
Well, that's the press preview. Let's hear your view on all the burning issues. Follow us on Twitter at Arise TV. You can also join today's conversation using the hashtag AriseDaybreak.